when you lack direction, you'll kind of latch on to anything. And a lot of the things that they're latching onto are the popular stereotypes. So you ask a lot of young men, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? What did they say? I want to be a rapper. I want to be a ball player, right?
I would say, you know, when I come on here, we always talk about social determinants of health. And so for me, it is what else is happening in their environment that is exacerbating whatever challenge is already there.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And our team, since 2020, has reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. I also am a content provider and sit on the advisory board of a site called Indie Soup Media. And what is Indie Soup Media? Indie Soup Media is a independent content creators network that is driven by Dr. Tachi, a good associate and friend based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, has over about 35 independent content creators in the last 4 months, and now has a YouTube subscriber base of over 15,000 people. So you can catch a lot of my content out there on that platform. Also, a lot of people's content too. So just want to shout that out. So let's do some house cleaning or housework before we get to the star of the show. So first things off, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Really appreciate if you did that. We're a few subscribers away from 1,500 subscribers. So if you're up to it, please do that. Also follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I broadcast or are part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. As always, I love bringing new friends, and this one is a friend who I have not seen in a long time on the platform, and I'm going to surprise you with something. I did some archive digging today. Look at this. This is going back to my early days of broadcasting. Dr. Roz's Healing Praise presents the certificate to the Vibe and Vegas Show. Before it became the Dr. Vibe Show, in its early days, this was the Vibe and Vegas Show in recognition to your valuable contribution to the 4th annual Celebrating Who Have Triumphed Awards, October 19th, 2012. Now, I don't think I've seen this lady since that date, but I know she's been doing a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? She's doing a lot of things. Someone's jumped in the comments here. Yes, and I have to say, Nicole Waldron, without you and Faith, this conversation wouldn't happen. So thank you for making this conversation happen, Nicole. So you know what? I have so many different ways I can go with this conversation. So I think one of the ways I'm going to try and go with this conversation is doing this. So I'm going to do something really interesting. And if you don't know who we're going to be having a conversation with tonight, you're going to find out in just a moment, because I've got something I want to show you all. All right. We're going to do it right here, right now. Here we go.
Pick up. Pick up. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. No permission given. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. What did you hear, man? Take your hands off me. I'm heading to my destiny. And you know, no means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. Can't touch this, can't touch this. This is my own choice. Can't touch this, can't touch this. I'll say when to get close. Do not try to impose. My body is my own. My body is my own. No means no, 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 no. this. This temple is my soul. Can't touch this, can't touch this. What the hell do you suppose is happening when you get close up to my pose? Close up to my pose. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. Can't touch this, can't touch this. Hear me when I say, can't touch this, can't touch this. There is a better way. My body is my own, and I'm in full control. I am in full control. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. No means no, 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 no. Can't touch this, can't touch this. No permission given.
All right. I don't think she expected me to do that, but I thought it'd be great to do this. So for those who don't know, I'll tell you. This lady is a powerhouse, Dr. Roz Roach. We're going to have her on. She's going to be talking about a great play called Sistas Calling, which is going to be playing this Saturday in Toronto, where we're going to be talking about that. We're also talking about some of her journey, and then even more important, the important and sensitive issue of domestic violence against young women. I could read her bio, but you know what? That ain't going to do justice. The only thing that's going to do justice is bringing her up here live, right here, right now. It is an honor and pleasure to have you back after 12 years almost. So that's all right. And we did not do it on purpose, family. We did both the purple background. I did not know she was going to do purple around as her scarf. But what did you say about purple and yourself? Purple is what?
Purple is my healing color. When I need to be grounded, I would go to purple. When I need to meditate, I use purple around me. When I need to deep breathe and to go to a higher space and place, I wrap myself in purple. It has worked well for me for all my life.
100%.
It is my calming, healing color.
100%. Thank you for that. Looking forward to this because I know this is going to be some good self-care for many of us, some education, and I know also some calls to action.
Yeah.
All that wrapped in. For people who do not know, can you just share a little bit about yourself? Because I could have read the bio, but I think it's better coming from you.
Well, it's harder to come from me because
you want me to read it then?
It's really up to you, but I don't really talk about myself.
Okay.
I let you read it and find out.
Okay.
Often people would say to me, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know this about you. I didn't know that about you." And I say to them, "Well, you would not know unless you read, because I wouldn't tell you."
So if I ask, will you tell me?
It depends. Yes, I will. If you ask. But
well, I'm not gonna read the bio. I love epic conversations. So let's see where this leads us. So where was Dr. Roz Roach born?
Listen, man, I was born in Trinidad and Tobago in Aruca. Okay. I grew up in Aruca. I left my country that I'm still closely connected to in 1969, and I made my way to Montreal as a young girl, not knowing anybody. Not only I knew to speak French because I studied French, or I learned French when I was going to high school.
Right.
I went to Rima Government Secondary School.
Okay.
And that's where I learned French. My French teacher was Mr. Bain, a really lovely 6'5" man. And I learned French. She was our French teacher. So I grew up in Montreal, basically.
Okay. Why Canada and why Montreal first?
Well, my story is a very interesting story. It's not the common story. I will be careful how much I say, and I'll let you read through the lines.
Gotcha.
I grew up an orphan, and my father married a woman from India, and we are talking about the 50s. And in those days in Trinidad, it was almost unheard of for an African man to marry an Indian woman. And my stepmother did not like Africans, did not like Black people, period.
Right.
I said it every single day. And with all the wrong that went on with my stepmother being an evil human being, I was a baby and a child. My next door neighbor said to me one day, "Child, if you stay here, they're going to kill you."
Wow.
Those were my neighbor, White is her name. Those were her words. And she had some company coming from Canada, some Trinidadians, but live in Canada. They came to visit her, and she called me as a child. And she said, I was very smart, apparently, in school. And she called me and she said, I want you to have these people as your pen pal. So what did that mean? It meant writing them every day and trying to mail a letter to my pen pals in Montreal.
Pen pals. Wow.
You remember what that?
Oh, yeah. Only there probably a certain group of people that's watching this live on the replay. They will have no idea about pen pals.
So I had some pen pals, and I would write them every day, but they weren't answering because the letters won't go in. And when I met them, they said, "Oh, you should come to Canada when you get older. You should come to Canada." And I believed them. And my neighbor, to make a long story short, my neighbor organized it, stole me away from my abusive family, and put me on a plane.
Wow. So
I landed in Montreal.
Yeah.
In a slipper, September the 9th, in a flimsy little short skirt, a little dress, and a red suitcase with my name on it. Don't know anybody, never been on a plane before. I had never even been to Tobago. I landed, the immigration took me aside and put me in a room. And they actually said to me, "Do you speak French?" And I said, yes. They gave me a French exam, and I passed. And then they told me, where are you going? I told them I had some mail from my pen pals. And I got in a taxi with no money, and I told the taxi I was going to 1144 Surge Street in Montreal. He took me there. I went to my pen pals who didn't have a clue who I was. Because when they said that, they did not mean that. You take it? When they said it was something to say, they did not mean, but I took them seriously. And so I basically ran away from Trinidad, ran away from home. No one knew where I was but my neighbor. So that's all you got to get for this moment. And the rest is history.
No problem. You know what?
And by 1972, 73, I was a registered nurse in Montreal.
And how long were you a nurse in Montreal?
For about 17 years. Okay. Meanwhile, I went into medical school and studied while I was nursing, while I was working as a nurse. And in 1977 or 75, I met my lovely partner, who is my husband, Mr. Roz Roach. We just celebrated our 45th or 46th wedding anniversary last week.
Whoa. That is
my best friend, my lifetime confidant, Sistahs Roach.
Well, I
met my husband in a hospital where I was a nurse and he was an orderly. And in those days, nurses did not hang out with orderlies because of the power dynamics. But I used to hang out with my friend, Sistahs Roach, and he became my best friend. We have 2 adult children, my son Atiba, who is an adult, and my daughter Tia, who is an adult. I have 2 grandchildren. Isaiah is a 17 and Zane is 6. So I'm good to go. I'm blessed.
And highly favored.
Yeah, by me first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Love More Share says, greetings and love everyone. Nicole says, I learn something new about you every day.
Yep.
Love More says, happy anniversary.
Thank
Nicole says,
you.
happy anniversary, Dr. Roz and Cecil.
Yeah.
Where did you journey to after nursing?
Well, not after nursing. While I was in nursing, I journeyed to, I wanted to prove a point because I was seen as brilliant. So I went into a medical program. I went into a medical program with no money. I was extremely poor. And Cecil and I were really poor as a couple as well. And when I say poor, I'm not talking about the poor of today. I'm talking about the poor of yesterday. The days when there were no food banks, the days when there were no housing, the days when you had to work to pay your way through school, there were no OSAPs. That's what I'm talking about, that kind of poor. The days when you have two underwear, you have to wash one and put it behind the fridge to dry, you put it on the radiator to dry so you can wear it the next day. That kind of poor I'm talking about. So I wanted to prove a point, so I applied to get into medical school, and I did get in. Then I wanted to become a psychoanalyst. In those days, a psychoanalyst was always a wealthy Jewish male. I was a little black girl with a strong Caribbean accent and matted hair because I've never put chemicals in my hair. Never did. So I was seen as a vagrant, if you may put it like that, because my hair was matted. In those, we're talking about the 70s and early 80s, eh? In those days, dreadlocks were seen as drug pushers and violent. So I was labeled, but I got into a program surrounded by rich white Jewish men. But I was smart and I was determined. I did not know how to pay for it. When I got accepted, I said, how would we pay for this? At that time, I have 2 newborns. I have a husband who just finished school too, and he trying to get a job as a teacher. I am talking about 1980, right? I got into this program. And I actually got a godfather, the head of my department, who believed in me. I told him I could not pay for the program, and he just paid for it and told me when I begin to earn, pay him back.
Wow.
And I did, along with other means of mortgaging and, going for loans. I remember going to the bank for a loan to pay for my education. And I'm a nurse. And in those days, you're working for $10,000 a year. 12,000 was the max. It was the highest echelon a year. And I remember going to the bank and trying to get a loan for $400. And I was promised, oh, yes, you earning, you will get that. And 6 o'clock that evening, the bank called me and told me they declined, I could not get the loan. And I would not forget how I felt. I thought, this is the time I will never ask for a loan in any bank.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. They rejected me. Even if they knew I had my first degree, they knew I was earning, they knew, so they rejected me for $400, a loan for $400. So, yeah.
Wow. There's a lot to delve in there. 2 children.
I have 2 adult children, 44 and 43.
Yeah, but going to school and all that going on. Is it always been, and if the little I know about you, you love challenges.
Yes, I do. I don't like anything easy.
Where does that come from?
I think it comes from my survival skills. I told you I was born an orphan, basically, no parents. And life was hardship. You go to auntie today, to go to granny tomorrow. You go to daddy when he wants you. You go to neighbor when you need something to eat. That was my life. So I knew I had to have coping skills. I remember my grandmother, who was a Venezuelan woman, Spanish woman, she did not like black people either. And my skin was darker than the rest. And I remember my grandmother knew that I was afraid of the dark. And my grandmother would want to punish me. She would put me outside to sleep with the puppies under the steps at night because she knew I was afraid of the dark. So I had to have coping mechanisms. I had to have skills. I had to be strong. And I had to keep my eyes on my journey and not get confused by all the noise and other stuff that was going on around me. And I've always been like that.
How much of a challenge was it going to school when I'm making, and tell me if I'm wrong, where you're the only black woman there? How much of a challenge?
But I'll tell you how much it was a challenge going to school in Trinidad first.
Okay.
And I was talking about that recently. My stepmother took me out of school for 1 year when I entered high school. And she said, all I needed to learn to do is how to cook, wash, and iron and find myself a man. I did not need education. And my brother, who today I support and love and care for, my brother was 2 years older than I am. My brother started selling pies on the street of Aruka and Arima to send me back to school.
Wow.
So that was the first challenge. But my stepmother, who did not know how to read or write, and when she had to vote, she had to do a fingerprint, did not value education, and said, well, you don't need to go to school. Stay home and learn to cook, wash, stack, and iron. And I know to do all that since 9 years old, right? I know to cook. I could cook anything, but I don't do it today, but I know how to do that. So that's what it was about. So that was the first challenge. And thank God for Eric Williams, who was the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago for how much, 20, 30 years? Eric Williams, his government began to support children like me by helping them with every month with a few dollars they were sent to their guardian to help them with education. And I always say thank God to Eric Williams because he helped me make my path for education as a young girl, aged 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Wow. Phenomenal. Nicole says it's so important to have someone who believes in you and willing to give you an opportunity to grow. So you just named some people in the last few moments that have believed you and given you the opportunity to grow and prosper.
Yeah, I mentioned Dr. Raymond Prince, the man who helped me to pay for my education. He believed in me, and he was my supervisor, actually, and the director of transcultural medicine at McGill University.
Wow.
And he believed in me. My brother, who is 2 years older than I am, and today, you know, I am doing a sort of a dental work on my brother's mouth in Trinidad, paying for his all his teeth removed, and it's happening as we speak, and getting him dentures and stuff because he had lost his teeth. And you know, and he called last night and he said, thank my sis. I love my sis. If it wasn't for my sis. And you know, and I had to say to him, you know, Conrad, if it wasn't for you, I might not be who I am today, because you, at a tender age of 14 or 15, you dropped out of school, made pies, meat pies, sold it on the street, which was a shameful thing to put your sister through school. So it's not, I'm not the one doing this for you. You contributed to who I am today. And just that one brother in my family. And he did that. He was a young boy. He dropped out of school and sold pie to send me to school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Serena Gordon says, so inspirational. Love Marshare says, thank God for everyone who believed in you and blessed you.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Thank you.
So you finished school, what was the next step after that?
What school are you talking about? I've been in school all my life.
Okay, the school that you got your tuition paid for.
I had many tuitions. I've done many things.
Okay.
So.
The one where
what part of the journey you touching on?
The one where you said you were basically going into a school.
Oh, went to be a psycho.
Yes. Yeah. That one.
The question to me was, what was my next journey?
Yes.
Okay, so my next journey was being clear that I did not want to be a traditional MD. I did not want to write prescriptions for anybody. So I brought that to my department head, who thought, what are you doing in this profession if you don't want to do that? So I remember telling Dr. Prince that where I grew up, there was no medication, and my grandparents would use bush medicine. So I made a proposal to McGill University how I could study the treatment of ills and diseases without using Western medicine.
Oh my gosh.
So I got an opportunity to study the entire regions of the world, as I think 15 or 16 different cultures, and how they treated ills and diseases without a pill. So I graduated with 2 or 3 other people from McGill University in the 1989, 88, with a doctorate in health and human sciences, basically. The treatment of illnesses and diseases, transcultural. I graduated from transcultural medicine. And how I came to Toronto is after I graduated, I was recruited by 10 headhunters.
Wow.
I had 10 positions and I chose Toronto. I did not want to go to Vancouver because it was too far from Trinidad Carnival. I did not want to go to because I'm a carnival woman, right? I'm the soca goddess. Yeah, that's
Okay, so doing the video was no problem for you.
Oh no, I'm a soca artist. I spent years and years in calypso tent singing and performing and in nightclubs raising money to build Dr. Rosa's healing place.
Oh my goodness.
I'm a great songwriter. I write for some of your soca artists. I write for some of the hip hop artists. I just write music and songs. And that was how I was able to pay my way or to help build Dr. Rosa's healing place. So I raised a lot of money for that, right? I raised $4 million, and then I had, well, we negotiated with government, and then I raised $1 million. So, yeah.
This is, before we go for a break, where do you get, there's one of the words that's coming to my mind right now is creativity. Where is that sourced from?
That, I think that you may not understand it, but I do. I think I came in this world with such a clear purpose and such a gift from my higher spirit and my higher powers that I can do anything I want to do, first of all. And the creativity, I have 2 powerful sides of me. One side is the very clinical side where I can heal and fix anything and anybody without a pill. And I could understand anybody because of the psychoanalytic years of training. And the other side is the artsy side, that being designing, sewing, drawing, making costumes, singing, dancing, beating a drum. That's a powerful side of me. And I think that side helped me, that artsy side of me, really helped me create balance to continue to do all the difficult, I do difficult work.
I know.
My work is not a job where you go 9 to 4. I serve the world. And I serve the world with violence, with threats, with fears, with anxiety. That because I'm always at risk. About 2 weeks ago, I got a serious threat that I had to walk away from my rehearsal and go to the police, Wow. But it's something you keep inside, you don't tell anybody. You don't share, and I have that in me. I do things and I say nothing because the work I do is done in confidentiality, privacy, secrecy, and all this, you can't talk about it.
Right.
So for me, all my life, I've had a therapist. And I have a therapist not because, I'm broken. I have a place where I could go and swear. I could go and say what I want to say. I could go and unload what's on my mind. I can go and share the secrets that I can't tell anybody. And I know it will be contained. And then I could go home and beat a drum or play a guitar and dance. And don't ask me where I went because I wouldn't tell you. That's not your business. But where did you go
I'm
today?
not asking.
Why?
I'm not asking. Hey, I know my
No, I
boundaries.
say that because I make a joke with my friends. You say, "Where were you today?" I say, "What is it to you?" I know where I was. I went to see a therapist. So all my life, I've had all my really adult life, and because of the work I do too. And when you're a psychoanalyst, you have to have a therapist. You can't treat people with distress if you are distressed yourself. You know, so.
All right. I think that's a good time to take a break. So we're going to take about a 2-minute break. When we come back, since as Dr. Roz told me before we went live, she is in charge. So I'm going to ask her permission on what
I run things.
You run things. You run things. Yes.
When it comes to me.
You run things. There you go.
When it comes to me.
So I'm going to ask I'm going to make an offering on how Dr. Roz is going to run things for the rest of this conversation. Because this has already been so rich. Thank you, everyone who is watching live or on the replay. This is epic. And this is just the appetizer. The main course is coming up. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes with Dr. Roz Roach, and keep it locked, family. This has already been epic, and she's going to take it to the next level. So give me 2 minutes.
You know, and that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harriet Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harriet Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. Now, really, the rappers get all the attention. You know, seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, you know, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the, you know, just people that, you know, don't always represent the best of us, you know, the diversity, you know, like people like Dr. Vibe. Like, everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. The men who are also doing the same thing. I see Dr. Vibe in here. He's a great brother. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. He's a smart brother in Canada, and we need to follow smart people. So follow Dr. Vibe. If you see him in the chat, and Dr. Vibe, say your name in the chat so people can see you. I want you to click on his name, and I want you to go follow him, please, because I want these men and women that are doing the right things to get the support they deserve. Hey, Dr. Vibe, how you doing, brother? Again, like I always do, I gotta say everybody should go follow Dr. Vibe. He's got a great show. Dr. Vibe, I know Dr. Vibe's got a kingdom because I see your channel. I see you pouring into that every day. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. Look him up, Dr. Vibe, V-I-B-E. He's a great friend of me and my wife, and I love this guy.
Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. You know, a lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. You know, helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right. We are back with Dr. Roz Roach. And let me catch up because the comments are just, oh my gosh, so many coming in. So let's get through them because I'll get backed up. So, because we've got a star. Pros and Cons says, happy anniversary. Also says, wow, what an intense childhood. Such a blessing to have a strong sibling bond and sense of care for each other as children and then adults. Also says, a true masquerader. And yes, we know that Dr. Roz wrote all the songs for Sister Calling. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Victory Speaks says, daily you inspire me to be my best self. Lovemore says, creativity is such phenomenal currency. Anjule, I don't know, Anjules, if I said it wrong, it's my head, not my heart. Truly a force of nature. Thank you for your life's work. And I would just say it's not hard work for Dr. Roz, it's heart work. Yeah. Lovemore says, she run things, and so she does.
I run myself. I don't run anyone.
We're at a commercial break for all those tuning in. Yes. All right. We are good. So we are back. So how did the world of domestic violence against women. How did you enter into that world?
Well, interestingly or not, as I said, I believe that each and every one of us come on this planet with a purpose. Some of us get it very early in life, and some don't get it at all. Some just leave this planet and didn't realize what their purpose was. However, when I was about 9 years old in Trinidad, we had something called a radio fusion, which is like a radio. And my aunt would always have the BBC News going on. And I would listen because everyone is listening. We had no television. We just had the radio fusion. And I would hear about the war in Beirut. And I remember going to my auntie and saying to her, Auntie, when I get older, in those days, I would say when I grow up, when I get big, right? That's with the language or dialect. So when I get big, I want to go to Beirut and help the people who have been killed in the war. And my aunt said to me one day, where is Beirut? And I said, I don't know. And she said, and she said, when you go to school tomorrow, ask your teacher. So before you want to pack and go to Beirut at the age of 9 years old, first you have to figure out where it is. Now, very early in my life, I knew, and I was confused because I was oppressed to the point where you cannot speak about the conflicts inside. But I knew that all of us were equal, but I was going through my rejection from my family because my skin was dark and I had no mother, and my father was in a different world, and he was not there for me, the last child. So I knew something was wrong with the world. I thought for a while that Trinidad was the world. I thought Trinidad was the biggest thing ever as a child. But I always wanted to help and help and help people. But as I got older, I actually did not see violence towards women in my circle, other than my stepmother would beat my father. I remember one day she was making roti, and my father was older and she was younger. She was a princess. I remember one day my stepmother was making roti and she had a rolling pin in her hand, and she was rolling the dough, and my father said something, and she took the rolling pin and she smashed his head with it, and the blood splattered in all faces. And I remember that as it was yesterday. I was only about 10 at the time. So I grew up with this thing about everyone should be treated fairly, I grew up like that. But when I landed in Montreal, I was very radical. I'm not a sweetheart, first of all. I am not no nicey, softy. I'm a warrior. But I remember when I was in Montreal, the Pope was coming to Montreal. Montreal is a very Catholic, or still is. And I decided to make a placard and go and walk where the Pope was traveling downtown. And on that placard, I put, "My body's mine. You can tell me what to do with it." Because at that time, my family, who was strongly Catholics, was saying things like, there was, and I was thinking, like, how could Granny tell people what to do with their bodies? You're out of place. How can the Pope tell you what to do? They had their conversations about, and I would hear this as a child, that, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, girls can do this, girls' voices must not be heard, ladies must be seen and not heard, boys can talk and shout, but girls must be quiet, girls have to be, they can't, all these things that girls could not do, but boys can do. And I came to Montreal with that feeling, and when I arrived to Montreal, I really was happy that I got away from this oppressive family that I grew up in, even if I was alone and didn't know my way, but I was still free. And I just went on a journey that when I was a nurse and I worked in emergency at the Jewish General Hospital, and a young nurse, you're talking about 20, 21 age. And a woman came in one night and she was broken everywhere. Her jaw, her collarbone, her wrist, she was broken everywhere in emergency. and she was beaten by her husband or her partner. And I nursed her, and I cried internally, not publicly because we couldn't do that as nursing professionals. I cried internally, and I began to say to myself, I have to do this work. I have to do this. But keep in mind, I was poor, and when I got married, I was the main provider because I was able to work full-time at a Jewish, work part-time at St. Mary's, and work on call at the Douglas. So I worked 3 jobs to pay the bills. But I would say to myself, when I get on my feet, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a space to serve women and children who are vulnerable and who are at risk and who don't. I was blessed because I have a partner for 45 years, officially, but it's really 47, for 45 years, who is my best friend. And I don't know anything about being hit by a man other than my father when I was a little child who acted out, and my stepmother who was evil. So I just felt that I had to do this work, and that work led to other things, because when I became a doctor and became a therapist and I had a private practice, I saw only women and girls. I treated rape survivors. My practice was packed with rape survivors. And coming to Toronto, I was the only Black female psychoanalyst in the province, female. So my practice was really filled with women and girls who are going through violation, and anybody Black who was looking for a therapist, they were my clients, because I had sliding scale and I did most of my work with my community for nothing, just to serve. So that work went on and on and on and on. And in doing the work, I was always broken and angry. Always angry. Why do people treat people like that? Why is this? What, looking at the power dynamics, looking at patriarchal versus the matriarchal systems, looking at the global systems of the power of the man, you know. And on Saturday, I was speaking on Saturday to survivors of gun violence and who were going through healing work, you know. And the question came up, why do men behave differently to women? And my quick response was, from the beginning of time, and I'm going to be rude because that's part of who I am. From the beginning of time, men were born and their genitals were called. And from the beginning of time, women were born, girls were born, and their genitals were called fanny, pom-poms, nanny. You dig it? From the beginning of time, men were put in blue. Little baby boys were put in blue, and little baby girls were put in pink. You dig it?
Facts.
Facts. So when you ask me the question, why is it that men are hurting women? And it's not all men, but enough is enough. One is enough. We all are expected to be treated fairly. Now, I did say in the beginning that my stepmother was beaten up on my father. So, of course, we have the few women who are, you know, acting out and hurting men. But overall, the perpetrators are male because of the early messaging that we give to men from the beginning of time. And the messaging we give the girls. How often we tell a little boy, stop crying and be a man? How often? How often we tell a girl, don't speak so loud, cross your legs and be a lady? How often? You know, someone called me the other day, oh, you're a lady. I said, no, darling, I'm no lady, I'm a woman. Don't ever call me a lady. Because just that language put you in a different role, in a different place, in a different space. And I think that brothers, like Sistas Calling is a production written by me, calling on brothers to join the movement, to help me and to help all the sisters out there, to hold other brothers accountable. Because when I tell a brother, oh, God, don't treat your woman so, no, man. Next thing I hear, you know, Dr. Roz is a lesbian. You know, Dr. Roz hate man. You know, I hear all that stuff. I don't hear it so much today because I fought for my respect. But in the times in the 80s and the 90s, when I hold a brother accountable and I say, oh gosh, don't treat your woman like that, no. You know, or I said, come on, guys, come on. Dr. Roz hate man, you know. No, darling, I love men. You know, I love men. I have 2 beautiful men in my life, my husband and my son. And all my girlfriends' husbands. I love men. But it's not okay. And you asked me about statistics.
Yeah, you're reading my alleged mind, because I saying we're either going to, I guess we'll talk about the play later. You're going right in on the domestic violence, so let's stay there.
We better.
Yep. You're running you, so here we go.
You know, we talk about violence against women and girls. In 1970, I told you I was a registered nurse. That's my first profession in Montreal. So I was the lead nurse at the Allen Memorial Institute in the 70s for adolescent psychiatry. And not the head nurse, the lead nurse on the ground. So we had 12 beds funded by the Quebec government. Quebec is all French. You could speak French, but if you're not a Quebecois, you're disregarded. Everyone in the profession had to be fluently bilingual. So at the hospital, we had 10 or 12 English beds funded by the Quebec government. So one day I came into work, and her name was Maggie. She was the receptionist, the nursing receptionist. She told me that the night before they got a call that the Quebec government was going to cut the funding for the English adolescent department. So I began to wonder, what would we do with our 12 English-speaking youth? They have nowhere to go. And if they go anywhere, they will go into a place called Shawbridge, which is a detention center for youth. So the conversation came, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And everyone I wasn't concerned about losing my job because I had jobs. I could go on a part-time job and say, I want to be full-time because I have seniority. So that wasn't a conversation for me. But a lot of other nurses felt they would lose their jobs. So I got up one morning and something came over me, and that's how I groove. I'm spontaneous, and I go where the spirit takes me. I don't go where the humans send me. The spirit has to take me there. You can't tell me to go there and I'll go, because I don't really respond to humans in the same way. So I got up that morning, and I remember having a little shaky car, and really shaky, chuck, 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 chuck. And I drove to Ottawa. Wasn't planned, was not planned. Now, I knew where I was going because we would take our kids to Ottawa to see the Prime Minister, and we take them on tours on the summer for their summer outings. I went to Ottawa to see Pierre Elliott Trudeau. His son today is the Prime Minister of the country. So I'm telling you how long I'm doing this. When I got there, security said, where you going? They didn't know me, but I said, oh, I know this place, and I know we come here every summer. And I made contact with our Prime Minister of this country, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And I remember saying to Mr. Prime Minister, I said, Mr. Prime Minister, the Quebec government cut off funding. We have 12 English-speaking adolescents. We don't know where they will go to Shawbridge, which is a detention center. But I said something else. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, if we don't do something about violence today, in 5 years from now, this country will be permeated with violence. We talk about 1975, 76, 77, eh? And at that time, violence towards women and girls was 1 in 3. 1 in 3 was the documented stats. 1 in 3 girls were violated with violence. Today, the same stats, how much years ago is that? Must be 40, 50 years, I don't know. The same stats is there, 1 in 3. But I'll tell you a secret. It's not 1 in 3 women has been violated, because it's only 20% of women report. And what is documented is based on those who report. So if 1 in 3 is documented and it's only 25% report, do the math.
Yep. Facts.
Most women do not report, and every single sister has been violated at some point in her life, from the age of 14 to 65, at some point. And violence against women and girls is not, you don't have to break my nose or my jawbone to be violent to me. Call me a bitch is enough. That in itself is psychological violence. You dig it? So violence against women and girls does not come in the physical, it comes in the emotional, it comes in the financial, it comes in the spiritual, it comes in so many different forms. So when I talk on your show about this, I expect you to really straighten yourself out and do the right thing and be good to your woman. But I also expect you to understand this and to hold your brothers, any brother. You know, when you hear a brother, you know, the Law Society at some point had retained me to do group with lawyers who were at risk of being disbarred. So every Thursday in my practice, I had a group for men, only lawyers. And these lawyers would come into the group and they would say things to me like, "Oh God, Doctor, how are you looking so sexy?" Excuse me? These, you know, and that's my therapy group, right? Or these lawyers, one would say, one said one night, he said something like, "My wife is a..." I said, "No, you don't speak like that here." But she's a... The point I'm making here is how easy it is for men. Now, women doing their thing too, and I'm not talking, but I'm particularly talking tonight about violence against women and girls. But how easy it is for boys and men to be violent. And violent doesn't mean you have to have a gun, doesn't mean you have to beat up. It just means sometimes the language is so harsh, the way you speak to the sister, the way you treat the sister. It's truly, truly important that we understand the impact that it has. And it's a lifetime impact, because if you break my nose, it would heal in 6 weeks. But if you break my soul, it will last for a lifetime. What next one to say?
No, I'm just there. I was going to ask a question that I think you may have touched upon it, but you may want to expand on it. Could you discuss the psychological and social impacts of violence on women and their families?
If I could describe the social impact?
Discuss.
Of course, we can discuss it. What would you like to know specifically?
Whatever you'd like to share, because I will listen to anything you have to share, because I know that you are the expert here. So anything you have to share will be beneficial to myself.
When you talk about the psychological impact it has on women and girls, you know, you can see when a woman, I would look at a woman and know, just look at her eyes and know, partly because of the work I do, but partly because I'm a psychoanalyst. I analyze everything, even if I say nothing. And I would know that the person is in pain. Now, when let's talk about a girl. When a girl is violated, sometimes it takes a lifetime for her to heal. And she will internalize her pain, and she would hide her pain. Often she would not tell anyone but her therapist. I often hear girls or women coming to my practice when I was in practice like that. And they would say, "You are the only person I'm telling. I will not even tell my mother." And why? Because women also judge other women. Even if they're going through the same stuff, society has set it up in such a nice way that we blame the victim for anything that happens to her. I'm in Trinidad on a radio show, and I'm talking about this. And a man who is a professor at the University of the West Indies called in. And he said, "But Dr. Roz, she looked for she thing. What she was doing outside 7 o'clock in the evening, she should be in she mother's house." Now, my point here is, I could walk as a girl. I should be able to walk the street anytime and anyhow. I could walk naked if I want. You have no right to touch me and cause me harm. None. So when I hear these remarks, it comes from women too. It comes from men, but it comes from women too. I hear women. I had a session at my center some years ago. we have staff meeting going on. And at staff meeting, the staff would come and present the case of the client that came in the night before, or the day before, or the 2 days before. And this staff is presenting a case. And this staff said something like, she came in, she had a broken this and a broken that and a broken that and a broken that. And one of my paid staff who's working there said, oh my goodness, what did she do for the man to beat her like that? She must have done something. Now, my position is, you are blaming the victim. She's, you know, you are assuming that people have the right, if I say something, you have the right to smash my jaw. And I look at the staff and I said, what did you say? And she repeated it comfortably. Oh gosh, man, Dr. Roz, she had to do something for the man to beat you up like that. So women do just as bad, you know. We blame the victim, we criticize them, we tell the victim if they give the man good sex, maybe he wouldn't hurt you like that. Maybe if you make a child, it will change him, and all that stuff. We as women, we got to learn that no one has, you don't have the right as a woman to hurt anyone, and a man has no right to hurt you. Don't tell me about he raped and killed her because she was wearing a short skirt. We hear too much of that. Too much of that we hear. Don't tell me things like, oh, what she was doing at the boy's house. If I go to your house, I didn't go there to be raped. I went there to study. So it's all these messaging that we send out. You're talking about how it affects the family psychologically. The family themselves re-victimize the victims.
Okay.
You, as particular in many cultures, let me talk about my culture. In my culture, something happened to you, you come and you tell your mother, your mother cut your tail. Instead of saying, that was wrong, no one has the right to treat you like that, no one has the right to put their hands on you, no one has the right to hurt you. It's, you know, so it's perpetuated throughout. And society has created this. The way we are enculturated, the way we are trained, the early messaging that we get when we come in this world, and we get the messaging in different ways. We get it directly and indirectly. We listen to music, and for example, look at soca. I love soca. But sometimes I listen to the lyrics and I said, oh my God, my pulse is raising. What is he saying? Get she a slap now, get she a this, jam it up and she, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, what is that? So it keeps, you know, and in my lifetime, it would not be eradicated, but I will only continue to do what I do. And I would hold everybody accountable. Anybody. Like I watch my children and I watch my son, who keeps me grounded. And my son, I remember one day I was driving on a street and somebody cut in front of me. My son was with me. And I slammed on my brakes and I said, what the hell is wrong with these people? And my son looked at me and said, who are these people, Mom? He said, that's racist language. I'm disappointed to hear it coming from you.
Wow. He checked you.
Yeah. So we are all responsible to holding one another accountable when we slip up.
Okay. Nicole says we have to stop blaming victims that have been abused. And she also says we as women have to learn that we have no right to hurt anyone or be hurt by anyone. Well, all right. Yeah. Another conversation piece for you. Okay, actually, I just think there's a lot of, how does violence against women affect their economic stability and opportunities for advancement?
Yes. Well, that is a piece of conversation that is ongoing for me, because when a woman lives in a violent situation, often she lives with her abuser. Often you'll find that a woman runs just for her life. Like she will leave the house and the man stays in the house. So when she leaves the house, she's automatically homeless. Homelessness is not only about the person lying on a cardboard on the streets of Toronto or the streets. Homelessness is the person out there who don't have affordable housing, who don't know where to rest their head at night. They end up at shelters. When she's in the shelter, the abuser is still living at home in the nice fancy house that both of them contributed to building. And he's in the house and she has to find a place to live. So then, if you're talking about economics, she, especially with Toronto, she cannot afford the rent to go independently and rent a house out there with the cost of rent and housing in this city. So she's automatically homeless. So what happens? She goes on a waiting list for the next 10 years. She's homeless for 10 years because she can't afford to pay a rent of a one-room unit for $3,000 a month. It would affect her schooling. If she's in school, she somehow is emotionally distressed, so she may drop out, or she may not be able to concentrate on her studies. She may fail, and if she's working, she's stressed, so she ends up with the high blood pressure. She ends up with all the chronic migraine headache. She ends up with the menstrual cramps that she thinks has something to do with her reproductive system, not realizing it's the stress of the day that is causing her to bleed like that. So it affects every facet of her being. And she becomes a different person. She lost her health. She lost her companionship. She may lose her children. She lost her income. She loses her friends. Sistas Calling speaks to that in a straightforward way, because it's a true story that we put on stage. It's a real story. And we put it on stage through dance and music and narration and outcomes, showing outcomes. But I need to say, with all the sad story you hear me share, we as people, we have a resilience. We have a cord inside of us that would allow us to bounce back and to take charge if we really, really want to. We as people, we might be victimized, but once we are living, we are survivors. So we then have to be able to hold on to the strength of the survivor and make positive changes and grow.
Wonderful. Pros and Cons says violence literally changes the brain. Living in a state of fear changes the chemical releases and enlarges / shrinks different areas. Survivors literally are not able to think, process, imagine the same. Okay, you did talk about Sistas Calling, so let's talk about how did that come about?
Yeah. Well, I hear of the death of a woman almost every day. Why? Because I work locally, nationally, and globally. So some years ago, a woman came to the center. She was a nurse at Toronto General Hospital. And she somehow found out that I was a nurse in the past. So the odd times when she would bump into me, she would say, "Oh, you were a nurse, and I heard you were in charge of nurses at Toronto General," where I was at one point when I first came. And we would talk about nursing. And then one day, I knew nothing much about the woman because I really don't get into the clients' spaces and places. And then one day I came to the office, and my program director, her name is Pilar Martin, whispered to me that she had left the center. And I said to Pilar, "Where did she go?" Pilar said she got some kind of housing on Front Street. And I thought, how would she afford to pay that? She's working for $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Rent down in Toronto is so expensive. And I whispered to Pilar, I said, "Pilar, you believe that?" And that's what we do. And we did not believe her. But what happened? She went back to the abuser. She went back to her husband and the children's father in Thorncliffe. And about a week or two, maybe after that conversation, I got a call from the media. And the call said, "Dr. Roz, I believe you lost one of yours. This happened." So I went to the crime scene. The man stabbed this woman like 60 times. He stabbed this 11-year-old son 30 times, some kind of a formula. And then he went and he jumped over the DVP.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I was angry, and my anger is not what you think it is. My anger is, what can I do to make a difference? Give me some of that energy to get in people's faces and places to make change. But around the same time, I do this work in the Caribbean as well. I bring women out of the Caribbean here to Canada if they're at risk of being murdered. Help them get their landed papers, set them up, and have them start a life so they don't get murdered in the Caribbean. So at that time, I have a friend, someone who I treated for a long time, and he speaks publicly about it, so I can speak about it. So he was a drug user, and I was his therapist when I was doing the research on treating illnesses without drugs. He was one of my clients. So, and I love this person. And he's like a brother. He's a brother in my life. So he came to me one day, he hugged me, and he told me in my ear, he said, I have someone whose husband is beating her. I want you to meet her, but don't tell her that I told you. I said, no, I'm not going to tell her anything. Her name is Marcia. Her name was Marcia. Marcia was, she worked for the Gael, and she was the anchor woman on evenings with the evening news. So I met her. It was set up. She knew my name, but she did not know me, but they talk about me all the time. So we sat for about 3 hours and we talked. I knew why I was there, but Marcia thought I was there for just to get to know each other because Errol talks about me all the time. So we talked for about 2 hours. We talked about carnival, we talked about costume, we talked about dance, we talked about soca, we talked about England, we talked about Canada, we talked. And then when my driver called for pickup, I said to her, I have to leave. My driver is coming. She leaned into me and she said, Dr. Roz, I have a friend and her husband, I think her husband is abusing her. What should I tell her? And I gave her a safety plan. I said, well, tell her if she has a relationship with her mother, tell her to do this and that and that and that, which is the same safety plan I'll give to the people I'll bring out of the country so that they're not at risk of being killed. And I told her that. And then I was beginning to get a little agitated inside, and I leaned into her and I said, Marcia, you sure you're not talking about yourself? And she said, no, it's a friend. And I said, all right, okay, if you say so. But I knew she was talking about herself. So I came back to Canada, and about 4 or 5 days later, I got a call. Dr. Roz, Marcia's husband just killed her. He beat her with a hammer on her head, set her on fire. So I went to Trinidad right away. And, you know, some of the soca artists, they put their money together, you know, and they really they had buried her and all that good stuff. I came back to Canada and I went on my mat. I spent a lot of time on a mat in front of a fireplace in my studio at home, and I meditate. And I decided I am tired, running around the world with a briefcase in my hand, with overheads and handouts and brochures and articles and publications, impressing the same people around the world about violence and its impact and changes. So I then decided I am going to go to the side of me that I really like, which is the artsy side of me. I call it my healing side. And I decided to write Sistas Calling. And that's what you'll be, that's where you will be coming to the show on Thursday, on next Saturday, so you need to see the show. It's called Sistas Calling. Telling the story, and it's a real story, telling the story of a woman who came to Canada to meet her husband. She knew no one in the country. She could not speak the language. Where she came, she's a brown woman. When she came to Canada, she had no friends. Her husband began to abuse her. And the husband told her that she couldn't call her parents back home. She could only speak to them once a month for 5 or 10 minutes in his presence. So that is what was going on for a while. And then one day he was out and she was watching the CBC News. And she saw the news item of the story I told you about the woman who got stabbed. She saw that was a real item. Drummond. Yeah, he reported the news with his co-anchor. She saw the news with him, telling the news about a woman who got murdered, and she grabbed his child and she ran. She ran and she met someone on the street and she asked for the nearest police station. And she walked for about 2 hours to the police station. When she got to the police station, the police brought her to Dr. Roz's healing place. When she came to Dr. Roz's healing place, she met a warrior. She met me. And she met me. And it's a true story. Just as it happened, it's on stage. She met me, and I told her no one has the right to treat her like that. No one has the right, that we would help her with housing, we'd help her get her schooling, we'll help her do some healing work, we'll help her son get support into daycare. That's what we do at the healing place. We help with every facet of the being. And she then came into therapy with me, and she began doing psychotherapy, which was my practice. And in psychotherapy sessions, she revealed more. She said that each time the man would beat her, which is a common thing, he would have sex with her and tell her, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. You made me do it. And she would say, no, 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 no. That's how the song No Means No came up. So I told her that was rape. You say, no, that's rape. She then said in her country she came from, her body is the husband's own. Her husband owns her body. I told her, no. In this country, no means no. If you say no, it means no. If he forces himself, that's rape. She continued to do psychotherapy with me, and then we found her affordable housing, which we do. She went to get, it was approved. She went to get the keys, and the landlord saw that she was a brown woman, and the landlord told her that it was taken. I then told her that was racism. She had never even heard a word from the country she came from, because in the little village she lived, they all looked the same. That was not a conversation for them. So I explained to her what racism is. She later continued to do therapy with me and began to she lost faith. She lost faith in her God. She would ask the question, why me, God? Why am I suffering like this? Her parents and everyone of families back, way, way back, miles away in another country. Why am I suffering like this? And she lost faith in herself. She began to ask me, why am I so kind? Because she had never heard about these kind of services in her country. She began to ask me, like, why do you care so much for me? So I introduced myself. I basically told her who I am in song. So we continued to work together. And I really made it clear to her at one point, which I would do when you're in sessions with me, that you really have to heal yourself. You have to let go of the feelings. You have to let go of the anger. You have to do the forgiveness thing. Forgive the abuser. Forgive the man who brought racism on you, which is another form of violence. Forgive them. Find positive people to surround yourself with. Connect with positive energy. Find your beauty, find your strength. And that was a process of 8 or 9 months of work with me once a week. So she did all of that. And then she found herself. She wanted to be a warrior. And she became a very strong human being. And she had a huge celebration. That woman today is alive and well, has a master's degree, and is running a big non-for-profit in Toronto.
That's amazing. How does it make you feel when you share stories like that? How does that make you feel in your soul?
Well, sharing a story like that has nothing to do with my soul. Sharing a story like that is my means of reaching people and bringing reality to the conversation, because the issue that we deal with is an issue that is dealt with in privacy, confidentiality. in secrecy, and all that foolishness. Until we begin to raise our voices and speak out about it, people continue to live their day-to-day life as if everything is fine. And I often say to sisters, if you think, my sisters, that putting on your nice weave and doing your nice nails and have your fancy clothes and covering up the pain is a quick fix, I need to say to you, you need to stop and breathe. Use your voice. If you're not doing it for you, do it for someone else, and you'll see how you will feel, how you would heal. Because I see the pretense, I see the pretense, and I know why we pretend. We pretend because society would ostracize us, or family would do it. There are families where a woman is being abused and she went to her mother. The mother said to her, you marry the man till death do you part. Stay there and take your licks. And that's real dialogue. So the woman is telling me this, that her own mother told her, stay home and take your licks. You married a man and you have 2 children. So women live in pretense. People live in pretense. They cover it up nice. They come out, they smile. And I look at them and I say, oh my goodness, because they're keeping that pain inside. And that pain affects the state of being, prevent them from reaching their optimum level of being. When people say to me, you're not tired? I say, no, come here, carry no pretense inside of me. I'm an open book. And when I have to deal with somebody, I deal it right here now, and I'm done. I carry it for the tomorrow. I hold it inside. Right away, and I'm finished. I'm done. And I say to people, there's nobody on this planet that could leave me with anger in my soul. Nobody. Nobody has the power to do that. Partly because I know that heavy feelings and bad feelings can make us sick. I know that emotional impact is so big, it's bigger than the physical, that we feel things and we manifest it in our bodies. Too many sisters are walking around with the breast cancer and the ovarian cysts and the menstrual cramps. That is a manifestation. You get the emotion, vomit it, let it go, and move on. Don't contain it. Don't hold it. Because you will get sick.
What interventions have proven to be most effective in reducing violence against women?
What intervention? I don't know. You tell me.
I'm not the expert. I would add, are there any innovative approaches that show promise? Well,
I say voice. And, I speak to women around me and I say, use your voice. You don't have to be me. Use your voice in different ways. I was speaking to my group on Saturday and I said the little things that each and every one of us have to do is to name it when it comes up. Call it for what it is. We could do simple things like put something on, write something, say stop the violence, it hurts. Put it in your language on your Facebook. You see all these social media stuff, all pretty this and something. I don't look at social media, first of all. But if I have to, and I see pretty stuff, it's like, oh, they're so superficial. Put something deeper to help another person. You may not even know that person. That person might be in India. But they will see it and it will make a difference. About a few years ago, I got a call. I'm in my office and I got a call from a woman from India. She said to me, is this Dr. Rosa? I said, yeah. And I didn't know where she was calling from. She said, oh, Dr. Roz, I'm so happy to meet you, to talk to you, because I went to America. So right away, I knew she was not around here. She said, I went to America and my girlfriend gave me a gift of your book. And she said, I'm a professor in India. And I work here, and she told me a little bit about herself. And she said, my girlfriend gave me that about 5 years ago. I brought the book to me back to India and I did not read it. I just put it away. And she said, recently she's been depressed. She's been sleeping all day. She lost her position at the university. She keeps her room in darkness and she's not eating, and she's telling me this. And she said, yesterday I got up and I was just looking at my shelf and I saw your book and I opened it. She went on, she said, I opened it and I began to read. The book is not, it's a book of me, full of myself. It's about you owe it to yourself to be well is the title of the book. And it has a lot of affirmations and picture of me in the nude and all sorts of, all kind of things that say, be comfortable with you. So she said, I read a few of your affirmation, and then I put the book down and I said to myself, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on track. This woman all the way in Canada has been doing such great stuff. Why am I lying here in the dark? The woman told me that. And I said to her, oh, you really? She said, and Dr. Roz, I got up and I got dressed. She said, for 4 weeks, I'm lying in a dark room with the curtain thing, feeling sorry for myself. With the point with that conversation, so I said to the woman, I said, do you ever come to Canada? And she said, not really. I said, well, I'll support you to come, and I'm going to have a circle of women that you can talk to about your experience. When we do things like that, you never know who's going to see it, who's going to touch it, and how it's going to impact and change people's lives. I have never met this woman, but now we are new friends. For the last, because it's about 3 years ago, she called me for this. So you asked me what to do to make a difference. Each and every one of us have a responsibility in small ways, in bigger ways, whatever we can do. Because as I often say to people, if you think you're going up to your fancy house and locking your doors and putting on your alarm system and think you're safe, it's coming for you. Because nobody is safe on this planet. You could be just walking down the street and something happens.
Nice.
So do your part. And don't come in this world and just live and eat and go to bed and go to work and come home and cook and lie down and watch TV and go to bed and come home and cook and lie down and watch TV. Today we were laughing about some people who live like that. And that is life, but that is not really life, because we still have to live to our highest level of existence because we were put here for a purpose.
100%. Let me catch up on comments here. We've pros and cons says rest in peace, Zara, Faris, and Zane. Also says rest in peace, Marcia. Nicole, the promoter, she is Sistas Calling, July 6th, 7 p.m. at the Meridian Arts Center. This is a production worth seeing. And for anyone that's watching live or on the replay, in the comments section, I put the links about Dr. Roz's place, about the production, Sistas Calling, and also the story behind Sistas Calling. So it's all there. And Nicole says this production is a musical theater production. Pros and cons says every 11 minutes, a woman is killed in her home. The statistics are heartbreaking. It has nothing to do with the time of night women are outside or what they wear. It has to do with the abuse culture. Nicole keeps on putting out the track on Spotify, the music. Pros and cons goes, we need to share more stories like Rosa's because we need to be aware of the reality, and there is a way to overcome, to triumph, to succeed. Congratulations, Rosa. She also says, thank you for asking about prevention, Dr. Vibe. I received that. Thank you. I appreciate you making this an epic conversation. Let me ask, you've talked a little bit about communities playing a role. What about policy changes you believe they're necessary to better protect women and reduce violence?
Yes. So there are ongoing policies, but you do know that different government has different understanding about what happens to women and who value women. And I'm going to say something real harsh, that sometimes some of our policymakers, they do the things that we say they should not do. Some of our policymakers, power is an interesting thing. You know, so often people with power abuse power. So it's really hard. And if all our policymakers or most of our policymakers are male, it's even tougher. So a big piece of our work is to encourage sisters to step out of the box that we were put into and go step into the political arena so that you can have a seat at the table to use your voice as a woman to make changes for women. Because if policies are continuously being developed and created, you know, I look at what's happening on the other side of us, at our neighbors. And I look at the policymakers. Who are they? What do they look like? But they're making policies about women's bodies. And these are men. So we need sisters to step out of the stop being a nurse and, you know, and this and that. Step out into politics and be brave and bold, because politics is not an easy place to be. Being in the political world is not easy, but there are a lot of sisters out there strong enough and brave enough and bold enough to become policymakers. I have a little mentee who works for me, or works with me, not for me, but with me, who is studying to do, you know, global health policy. And I'm watching her closely because, you know, she's at university doing her thing, because she has to step out at some point and have strong policies about health, strong policies about violence and its impact of violence on women, how it affects your health and well-being. And I know earlier someone talked about how violence affects the brain. I mean, our brain is our computer. And each time we get frightened or nervous or get a punch, we secrete hormones in our brain. We secrete poisonous hormones that will damage some of the cells in our brains. Every time you feel anxious, you secrete a harsh enzyme that burns the cells. So this is why it's so important for us to develop a sense of calmness and peace and being able to ground ourselves and to balance ourselves, because the brain is our computer, you know. And, you know, you see, if we look at my generation, I'm seeing my generation is just falling down with Alzheimer's and dementia, and, you know, and I know what that's about. You know, cells are dying. And it is true that our cells can regenerate, but we have to be able to know what to do and how to generate the cells in our brains. But if we live in violence, if we live in fear, if we live in stress, if we live in anger, if we live in rage, and if we live in resentment and all those negative emotions, we're going to die young, we're going to look old really fast, and we're going to have a poor quality life. So give it up and let it go. And I say to people, vomit. Vomit. If something is upsetting you, speak to it now. Don't carry it home and sleep on it, because all that time you're sleeping on it, it's burning you up. Let it go. Empty. Vomit. Vomit, emotional vomit. Let it go. Move on.
Other than Dr. Roz's place, are there any resources or organizations for those seeking help or wanting to get involved with this cause? I know they should go to you first, but are there any resources?
No, they don't have to go to me first.
Okay.
They could go and look at all the links. All you do, we are surrounded with computers and laptops. All you have to do, type that in, and 100 of resources would come up for you. Long ago, we used to send links and resources to people. We don't have to do that today. Today, all you got to do is to punch in. If you really want to get involved, punch in a BIS, yes, and you'll get all the and you can figure out where you want to be, read up on who's doing what, and join the movement.
Yeah, smartphone is a computer.
That's it.
Right.
And everybody's on it.
Right. So Nicole says, yes, more women need to have a seat at the decision-making tables. And she also says, I'm routing for your meeting to soar and walk victoriously on the call upon her Greater New Life Ministries, Pastor Rick Smith Sr. and Lady Dolores. And also she says, we have to remember that so many women that are abused and we do not have enough safe spaces. Very true. Just a few more conversation pieces. If also, I'd like to ask, what gives you hope when it comes to the fight against violence towards women?
What gives me hope is the fact that I am healthy and I have huge longevity, and I will be doing this until it comes to an end. And I do hope that I will leave behind me a little insight. I don't expect radical changes, because 1975, when I spoke to Pierre Trudeau, I said, it was not like this. I said, in 5 years, we will be. And how much years later, we're in a worse place. So I don't live in a fantasy. I live in my reality. So my work is to do everything I can with what's given to me. And what's given to me is my best friend, who's my husband, my support system, my 2 children, who are my grounders, my 2 grandchildren, and my good friends. I am blessed with good friends. And I draw energy from all of them. You know, all of them I draw energy from. So my hope is that my friends, my family, they stay healthy and grounded enough to help me go through this journey that I've created for myself 50 years ago.
Beautiful. What do you want people to leave with after watching Sistas Calling?
What I want people to leave with is to realize that the message and the story is not an isolated situation. It's happening to each and every one of us, regardless of how we eat, sleep, or sin. It crosses all barriers. It crosses all socioeconomic groups. It crosses all race. It crosses all race. It crosses all culture. It crosses all religion. It crosses all ages. To know that it's happening all around us. You know, when the news would drop a story, which is once in a while because they don't bring all the stories, when they would drop a story about a woman got murdered today, people look at that and say, oh my God, that is so horrible. They go to sleep that night and tomorrow they get up and forgot about that. So, and it's a good coping mechanism because we need to cope to live, right? To have a relatively okay life. It's a good coping mechanism to forget or to suppress or to ignore. But we need to realize that it can happen to you, or it's happening to you, it's happening to your child, it's happening to your neighbor, it's happening to your daughter's friend at school, it's happening all around you. So what I want them to leave with is to walk away saying, that is so true. Get out of the denial and realize that is real. What little can I do to make a difference? Because it takes each and every one of us to bring about change. This is not my job. This is not something I have to do. And often I would hear people say to, oh, Dr. Roz, what you doing about this? I remember there was a mayor in Toronto. He called me one morning and there was a lot of shooting with Black people in Toronto, Black boys. And he called me and he said, Roz, girl, what are you doing about all this violence in the city? And I took a deep breath and I said, listen. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why you think it's my job to fix the violence in the city? So, you know, so what I want them to leave with is to realize that it's a reality, it's a truth, it's all around you, it's happening with you too. What could you do to make a difference? What can you do individually to make changes? What can you do collectively to make a change? Because if our society is permeated with violence, we will live poor quality life. So it will affect you as well.
All right, my last conversation piece, and thank you for giving us space and sharing with us. What message would you like to share with survivors of violence who might be listening or watching, either live or on replay, this conversation?
What I would like to say to survivors is very much what a journalist said to me at our last show. At our last event at the ArgoCon last year, where we went on stage for the first time on last July the 8th, I was being interviewed by CBC and many other media. And this journalist put the mic in my face and she said to me, oh, Dr. Roz, I understand that your cast are all survivors. And I said, yeah. And so she didn't know I was going to say that, but she had me on mic. She had the mic in my face and she had a camera on me. And I said, yeah. And I said, and so are you. You're a survivor too. So she got nervous. I said to her, so don't feel that the people who act in here are all survivors, because every woman is a survivor. Because from the age of childhood to 65, at some point, you have been violated. And I said, you're a survivor too? So not the people on the stage, it's not only the people on the stage. All the women in here today are survivors at some point in their life. So when we got off the camera, she said to me, how did you know? And I said to her, I know because every sister at some point in their life, in their development, would experience, even if it's once, they will experience something directly or indirectly. So the message I want to say to survivors is, honey, you're not alone in this. Don't be ashamed to find one warrior in your life. One. You don't have to find 5 and 10 and 25. One person you can trust. One person that you can believe in. And find a way to share your pain. Let it out of you. Let it go. And see how she can help you, bring you some peace. You're not alone.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Dr. Roz, let's not make it another 12 years, okay?
No.
No,
listen. No,
now
it would not be. It would not be 12 years. It will be 4 days because I'll be seeing you at the Sistas Calling production. And don't get me no kind of late or I can't come. No, you have to be there. You have to show example. You took my time today. I want you to learn something from the time that you have taken from me. So see you on Saturday. Buy a ticket.
All right.
Go online. Nicole is going to send you the link.
For more information on Sistas Calling, the link is there. For more information about Dr. Roz Healing Space, the link is there. For tickets, the link is there. And it's on most of the platforms where you're watching this live on the replay. It's information's in the comments section. Dr. Roz, I want to thank you for all the hard work you have done, are doing, and will be doing. Sarah Yango says, amazing. Yes, this is it. And I know that there's more good to come. So thank you so much. I don't really want to say too much. Just want to say thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for creating a space for me to put it out there. Because
Anytime.
every space I get to educate and inform, I welcome. Thank you.
And you have a home anytime you want to come here. Anytime, you just either touch Nicole, we'll make it happen. Sarah says, I wish we could get this production in Ottawa. Nicole says, Sarah, we need to come to Montreal and Ottawa to do this production. Facts. So as I will say in final to you, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And remember to give yourself grace.
Peace.
Thank you so much. Be well and keep the faith. Good night.
You.
All right, family. That was an epic conversation. And I wish I wanted to go longer, but before we went live, Dr. Roz said she's been up since 5 o'clock this morning. And I said, hey, I value your time. She goes, I'm good. I'm finished when I'm finished. So I said, as she said, she's in charge of her. Facts. All right. Want to say thank you for everyone who watched this conversation live or on the replay. It's appreciated and not taken for granted. I put up all the information on what you need to do in regards to the show. And let's do this first. You can watch replays of the Dr. Vibe show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and on my website, the drvibeshow.com. I know there's some more comments, so let's make sure nothing is getting left unturned. Sorry. Sarah says, thank you, Dr. Roz. Nicole says, that was an epic conversation. Facts. Sarah, it says epic indeed. Facts. All right, some few things before we shut it down, because I need some time to decompress and take all that I was filled with. So let's do it this way. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe show on YouTube and hit the notification button if you are up to it. We're a few subscribers away from 1,500. Also follow the Dr. Vibe show on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of. Dr.Vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Love to hear from you. A few more comments before we shut it down. Great job, Dr. Vibe. It wasn't a job. It was offering. It was an offering. Simple as that. I just steered the ship. Dr. Roz drove the ship. See you on Saturday, Dr. Vibe. I have been really touched, and there's a few members of this, how you can call it, this sex that needs to see this conversation. I'm going to be sharing a conversation with, and maybe I may need to hire Dr. Ross to do a healing circle. Just a thought. Just a thought. So this is how we ended off. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And don't just manage your time. Manage your energy. And remember to give yourself grace. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good.